everyone, and welcome to the Chief Science Officer Zoom In on Science calls, where we learn about STEM professionals and their careers to understand the impact of their job in modern life. My name is C.S. O'Dania from Sonora, Mexico. Welcome to Zoom In on Science, Mark Schraber. He's an inventor, makerspace guru, entrepreneur, and much more. So please, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Mark Schreiber, as you said, I'm here in Colorado, USA. I was in Tokyo, Japan just 4 years ago, working at a school out there. I love Tokyo. So they're just getting up, or I guess it's noon o'clock there. So it's always fun to talk on different time zones. And I like to make things, but more so I like to help other people create the things that they dream up. So I help schools and kids and everybody when they start having ideas, I start bouncing them back, and pretty soon we make things. And I typically have a fair amount of knowledge in building things. So grew up in Alaska, actually. So I think my first thing I built was tree forts, and I think I turned a lawnmower at one time into a downhill go-kart, and I don't remember it ending well. So.
That's very cool. Tell us more about your experiences. We want to know.
All right. I right now what I typically do is I set up innovation labs. So innovation is such a big, weird word, but it basically is using any man-made object to solve a problem and to innovate, and not just making things, but being inventive and design thinking about who your user is, and then that always, as Hope was saying, factors into building things to solve problems and to actually potentially make money with them, right? So the entrepreneurship side of it. But I think focus more on having a good product, and if people want it and they want to buy it, that'd be great too. But mostly what I'm working is that idea generation. So you want me to just kind of show you around what I'm working on right now? Okay. Here's my my kind of studio space here. I've basically got a big old pegboard that I made on the CNC behind me. That's a computer numeric controlled mill. And so I put some big dowels in there. What we'll talk about today is this hydroponic unit here. And I'll talk about, it's actually an aeroponic unit. We'll talk about that here in just a sec. And see, I've got a little solder station over here for doing electronic stuff. My blowtorch, because you have to have that. Got all my woodworking, drill press over here, 3D printer, another 3D printer over here, and then I've got a vacuum former. What that does is you put plastic up in here and you slump it down, and then you turn a vacuum on and it goes from there. Over here is a vinyl cutter. I've got a couple of vinyl cutters, and then my messy desk, which you guys don't get to see. Well, you can see a little bit of it there, messy desk. And yeah, what I do is I film a lot in here, so that's kind of fun. And let me turn this thing. I've got the camera on a little gyroscope mount here. But I wanted to show you some stuff that you guys could actually do at home if you wanted to too. So, well, first here, I've got this grow light here, so it's kind of bright. I'll put it down here to get it out of the way. But this is these are the roots of different plants that are kind of hanging down there. And as you can see, they're grown. There's some pretty long ones down there. And this bin back here, I'm gonna put this down over here. So you guys can see, this is just a little Tupperware container. Oops, let me get my gimbal thing. I haven't used this for a while. I don't know if you can see it here. It's really just a Rubbermaid bin with some little tiny garden sprayers and PVC or polyvinyl chloride pipe, and then a pump is down in here. And you can see that it's just spraying water out here. I don't know if you can see that. Spraying water, and the roots just kind of hang out right in here, and that's how they get their nutrients. There's a nutrient bath in there, and so when I put this back down here and I'll fix it on, then that's kind of how it works. So that's hydroponics. That's one way of doing hydroponics, but you can also do it That's like an aeroponic unit, so growing plants in there. But if you guys wanted to make your own and you had just some pipes laying around, I've got a couple things here. I'll put them on the table here and I'll show you down here. What I've done is I've got these are basically 2-liter pop bottle tops, like the lid, and I drilled holes in them. Can you see that? And then I shoved them inside a PVC tee. And what this does is basically the water comes up in one of these, right? This is a different one. So it comes up over here. Let's see if you can see it. Right there. Comes up right here and right over here. And then you screw the pop bottle tops into these holes, and the water will only come up to this level of this height thing right here. So let me bring it back up here. So that's one way of doing, and that's called ebb and flow, or a flood and drain system. And you like take a Christmas tree timer and you just turn the water on like 3 times a day, come on back down. You could put sponges in those 2-liter pop bottles. They're upside down. You cut them in half, right, upside down. They screw in there. I don't have any, and I can't go out to get any, so we don't drink a lot of soda. Maybe you guys do, but I usually have to get those from my kids' parties, but you know, I'm not going to any. So, but yeah, you screw them in there, and it's a really simple way of doing it. But what I thought would be fun is actually build one real quick for you guys, and you can ask some questions while I get set up here. But it's another method where basically you take any empty container. So I brought some bunch of containers. It's like a strawberry container. That'd be bad because it has holes in it. We won't use that one. This is a lettuce container, a big old lettuce container. Just any reservoir, you put water in there, and then you take a piece of foam and you basically float it on top here with your plant in it. So I'm gonna do that real quick. You guys can ask some questions, but you know, you said show what I'm doing, so this is what I'm doing. I'm actually gonna bend a coat hanger into a brand. Has anybody ever? Not gonna brand myself, don't worry.
So you can do that without foam? Can you place just like let's say the container and then put the container, like the plant in the container lid?
Yeah, you could do it with anything. It's basically soilless gardening, and anything that's an inert growing medium. It's also called controlled environmental agriculture, where you're controlling every aspect of your growing plants. It's super efficient on water use because you're not using water. And then you can balance the chemicals or the nutrients, phosphorus, nitrogen, potassium, all in there. But these little cubes are just pieces of rock wool, which is a type of insulation. But you could take anything and then just put it in the foam. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to size my little hole here. And I'm basically just going to, you don't have to, you could cut it, but I like fire. Don't do this at home without parents. But here, just a sec.
It's not science if there's no fire.
Well, I know. So this, I've sized it for my rock wool cube, and this is just a piece of coat hanger, right? And so I'm just going to heat this up because when you heat up metal, I think I ran out of propane. Well, we'll pretend. Oh man, all that, it could have been so fun. I was just trying it earlier, but see, I'm out of propane. But anyway, you'd take this and then you'd heat it up and it would just melt right through this type of foam, and then you can put this in. Here, we'll just pretend that we did it, and I'll just use a knife instead, or this is a little
Everybody should have unmuted and said, "Aw, man," and you can just fake it, and we can clip that part.
I know. There you go. So here, I've got the piece of rock wool.
That works so smooth, like butter.
I know, it just melted right. There we go. Melted right through there, and then I would just take it into a reservoir, and I would just float it on here. Now I'm going to take this one out. I've got one back here that I made beforehand, my happy little plant, and I would just stick this in here, and then I would just float it on top of the water in my reservoir. So that's one that you can do at home, and you can just use any nutrient that you want. It's pretty basic. Yeah, there's a lot of different nutrient types, but just any basic nutrient is one. And then when you get really schwanky, I guess, if you want to, is what I'm working on right now, is this concrete countertop piece that still has all these holes in it. So I can take my little pieces here and I can grab my plant, just a sec. And I can put my plant down into these little places, and then because you got to have it look nice too, I can put these little rocks all around it. And if I get, all these in here kind of going like that, then I have this nice looking aeroponic thing. So I went from basic form or basic function, and then you start adding in the form, and that's kind of what I do. So I like to make things, make them functional, and then make them pretty. Yeah. Any questions that have come through?
That is actually very cool what you're doing right there.
Well, good.
I think could you tell us a way of how to do that thing with hydroponic plants? I think that's how you pronounce it. But with more possible materials, because I don't think that a lot of us have nutrients at our home for plants. Maybe a little example of that.
Like this one is just a basic, I don't know if you can see that, it's just a 20-20-20. These numbers are different, potassium, nitrogen, and phosphorus in here. And so they have different amounts of them, but you could probably find something like that. If you didn't, if you don't have nutrients, it's hard to do. I guess you could look up compost tea. And compost tea is you get compost and then you basically wrap it in like cheesecloth or something. Basically let it sit in water and kind of stew like brewing tea. And then you pour out all the nutrients that have leached into the water. It's just a brown dirt looking water, right? And you just pour it through something to filter out the thick particles, and now you have yourself a nutrient solution. But I buy different ones here. Like this one's 646 different. And it's interesting with hydroponics is that depending when you do these, they depending how much nitrogen and phosphorus, potassium you give them, they actually will bloom or just grow. So if you don't put in the last number, basically, if you have very little of the last number, they won't flower. They just don't have the nutrients to flower. So other materials, so you got the nutrients with your compost tea. You could then, any bottles, you don't have a pump, but you could do a gravity, right? So if you had a tube and a bottle, you could just lift it up, right? And let the water flow into it, and then put this one back up on the top and let it drain back down. And then the next time you could lift it up higher, and it could drain back down. So you could use the gravity flow if you didn't have a pump.
Okay. So some people have already left some questions while we were listening to your explanation about all of the plants. So let's start with those, shall we?
Great. I'm gonna grab my cable. My computer's about to die. Keep asking. I can hear you.
Okay. So Saiba from Michigan asked, what type of classes did you take?
Oops, there goes my camera. All right, there we go.
I see him, he's coming back. Everybody should applaud, right? Like, we see you, Mark.
He better come in with a blowtorch.
Yes.
There you go.
My blowtorch ate my phone cord. It was so crazy. Yeah, the ball of fire, I barely escaped. Woo! Man, you're lucky. Hey, what type of classes did I take? That was the question I left on.
Yes.
I was technology education was my beginning as a teacher, kind of science and technology teaching, and then I did a fellowship after my master's at Stanford in digital fabrication in education. But as you're learning to build things, you just learn things, right? We all have Google. So I don't, I'm not an expert in botany or hydroponics, but I know enough to be dangerous. And some of you guys might really enjoy going deep in something, and some people might enjoy kind of dabbling. I think I like dabbling. So I learn something and then move on and then use it again later.
Okay, so the next question is from Hope. Can you get those nutrients online, or do you have to go to the store?
Yeah, you can. You can get them online. Probably the cheapest one and easiest ones to get would just be just look up a basic, what's this one, like Fertilome, basic plant fertilizer. But if you wanted to get a little deeper into it, there's a company that's been around since the 70s called General Hydroponics. And they do really good because they send it granular, so it's all dried, and then you kind of add it to water and make it your own. And you can test pH on it, and you can test parts per million, and you can get really deep into this soilless gardening and really control every aspect of it, light, everything else. So yeah.
Okay, so I forgot to ask some questions that I already had prepared.
Sure.
I got carried away with that. So here's the first one. What is your favorite part about your job?
I think kind of like I just said, just dabbling in things, kind of learning different things. And I do it based on what other people are interested in. One time I made a Christmas sweater. You can look up techno Christmas sweater one time. And I wanted to miniaturize a whole house display onto my sweater, my ugly Christmas sweater. So I did that for the holiday party, and I think I won. But it started because a student that I was teaching at the time really wanted to learn about LEDs, light emitting diodes. And so just tinkering and seeing what other people want to do, and then getting to make it myself. And then I kind of start going deep on it. So.
Wow, that's very, whoa. My sister walked in with our plant. Wait, get it over here. My dad's been growing an avocado, and he's very proud that it actually sprouted.
It's really heavy. You're not going to be
Wait,
able to
give it.
Not on my work.
Hey, look, hydroponics.
It's a big old bucket.
Nice. See, use what you got. That's great.
It's
Is there
my
dirt
little
there?
bucket. Yes, my dad said that it's a collection of sawdust, ashes, and dirt.
All right. Nice.
I don't know how it survived, but okay. We have 2 dogs that love eating leaves.
That's great.
What advice would you give to your 14-year-old self? So I'll try and get this back where it was.
My 14-year-old self. I think sometimes I can be very perseverant in getting things done, but my 14-year-old self, that was stubbornness. So I think I would tell myself to listen to others, because collaboration is a huge thing that I've grown in. And you need people to make cool things. You can't do it all by yourself. Just too much to learn right now.
Yeah. Everything's like constantly being, what's it called? Modernized. So everything is changing. And constantly new technology comes out. So, okay. Does anyone have, okay. Yeah, I spotted a question. So, CSO, I'm sorry again. Gari, is the product healthy for the plant?
Oh yeah. So the nutrients are just the basic building blocks that all plants typically leach out of dirt or soil, right? The really only difference between dirt and soil is something that has enough nutrients in it for plants to grow in. Dirt's what you kind of get underneath your fingernails, right? So soil you're using for a purpose. So really, soilless gardening is just taking all those components, the micronutrients, the other ones. Interesting thing is you can actually create your own blend where your soil might be deficient in something. You can create your own. A lot of greenhouses, your tomatoes are grown in hothouse greenhouses, typically with hydroponics, lettuce rafts, like I did before. And then there's some interesting funguses that are symbiotic that actually help inhabit the roots of plants, and you can add those to your nutrient solution too. So yeah, they're good for them.
Okay. Kelly asked, could you describe the CNC machine and what else you have created?
Yeah, so here, let me see if I can, let me unplug for a second, make sure my phone doesn't die. All right, I went to the phone version.
I'm like, don't do it. It's not that important.
Oh no, here. So I'm working on the CNC right now. It's you see my safety glasses out there. I guess I'll send it to you guys when it's all done. It's in pieces right now. It's like a giant kit. And then I saw somebody asking about my giant pop-up book. My giant pop-up book's over here. It's got a full-size desk lamp in it because, you know, go big or go home. So maybe I'll forward the video and you guys can watch it in its
Is there a blowtorch you can borrow from there too?
No, I'm gonna have to go find some more propane, I guess. I think Home Depot's open or some of these stores. I don't know if it's a necessity. And in Colorado, we get to do a little more, I think, starting Monday. So maybe
you can use your stove.
Yeah, there you go.
So CSO Tristan asked, is that a Shapeoko, the CNC? I don't know how to.
Is it a certain brand of CNC? This one's actually called X-Carve. CNC stands for Computer Numeric Controlled. That's a CNC mill. And a mill is basically like a drill that you can manipulate and move around and then shave down material. So it's a subtractive device compared to like a 3D printer, which is more like a hot glue gun that deposits, or an additive device. So this one's a Carvey. It's by Inventables. Sorry, X-Carve. I have a Carvey too. No, it's not the Carbide. Yeah, I see somebody has a Carbide 3D. That's a nice small bed. This one's 1,000 millimeter. So it's about a 3 foot by 3 foot bed. And they have bigger ones. I used to have at a school I was working with, so I didn't get to own it because it's expensive, was called a ShopBot. And that one's that's a 4 foot by 8 foot, so a 900 by 600 millimeter top.
Okay. So Kelly asked, what material will be able to use?
What material for the CNC?
Yes.
You can mill anything from wood to plastics. Also, you can mill circuit boards out. So if you use really small drill bits, you can basically mill away copper, and then you can make yourself an integrated circuit or a programmable circuit board, a PCB.
So also, CSO Shreya asked a question where it's tied in with a question that I want to ask that's going to take a little bit, but could you tell us some projects that you've worked on that have really helped you continue and not give up on researching and stuff? Because I think that something that a lot of people give up on is not finding an answer and then stopping completely. So what has kept you going?
Yeah, I mean, for every great project I've had 10 failed projects that are in pieces somewhere. And that's why I think collaborating with other people, they spur you on. I had a friend come over and we were up till 1 a.m. I wanted to go to bed at 11 and we were working on something and he just kept pushing and it was great. I needed that, right? I think for me, projects that make a difference in the world are ones that I like to help people at least learn about. And once again, I'm not the one that maybe makes the final project. I'm the one that helps get other people kind of learning, and then hopefully I watch them come back with this great project. So I guess I'm more the instigator in some ways. But I think the most impactful one I worked on was just teaching people how to do sand, gravel, gravity water filters, because there's so many places out in the world that don't have clean water. And if you look at the Sustainable Development Goals and everything else, clean water is a big part of it. And yeah, so, if you just use sand and gravel, you can make a sustainable filter. But then there's also a guy that made a thing called the Life Straw, and he used his knowledge and his team jumped in, a whole bunch of different people, and they created this thing that costs 10 cents that you can drink right out of the stream with this straw, and it filters out most of the pathogens in water. So anything that helps people make the world a better place, I think those are my favorite projects. But flashy LED lights are fun too.
Okay. It's funner, if that's a word.
Sure, I like funner.
So Kelly says, we just spoke to the director of the Story of Plastic. What are suggestions for clean water and less plastic?
Oh. Well, I think it starts with the consumer, right? And that goes back to the entrepreneur side of things. How could you all, use your dollar as your vote, right? Just by, it's Earth Day on the 22nd. So we say that we want to help it, but when it's cheaper and I can buy the plastic thing versus the glass thing, or I have a chance to throw away my bottle in the garbage instead of recycling it, right? I think that's where it starts. So I think there's a lot of great devices that can help harvest ocean plastic. Adidas, I talked to the global creative director of Adidas, Paul Gaudio, on an interview, probably 6 months ago now, and they are just taking ocean plastic and making shoes out of it, right? So there's some really cool stuff you can do, but I do think it starts with us, right? Our choices.
Okay, so I want to thank you very much for your participation today. You've been very passionate about what you... I'm very sorry because of that.
It's all right. We're all at home. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. So I want to thank you very much for your participation. And one last question. What advice would you give us as young leaders for our future?
I think somebody posted in the chat, but fail forward, right? And I like to frame it as be okay. Failing is part of the process. I think F is the new A, and you've got to like embrace it, but don't just fail to fail. You got to fail smart. So I would say, I think my advice would be, think about it as return on investment. That's a real adult word, I guess, in financial world. But it's, if I invest my time, my energy, my resources into it, what's the return for me? Maybe that's not for you, but maybe it's for somebody else. So when we all learned to ride a bike, it wasn't like we wanted to fail better. We didn't want to fall down more and skin our knees more. But we knew that when we learned to ride the bike, we would finally get to be free and have the wind through our hair and all those fun things. So think about, like, what are you passionate about? What do you want to do? And give yourself to that. And don't be afraid of falling down a little bit, knowing that the future is going to be worth it.
So thank you very much for that message. We thank you very much for joining us, Mark. It's been very fun to learn more about what you do and very inspirational as well. So we hope that you can participate in another call someday to help us continue with Zoom In on Science. And like the motto says, CSOs, unmute yourselves, please. Don't just hope it happens.
Make it happen.
Okay.
So there was one more question in the chat. Sorry, you guys can mute again.
Miss Kelly, Danya has to go, but if you want to ask the question, thank you, Danya. You're amazing.
I have a dentist appointment. I'm sorry. I'll see you soon.
Bye.
Yeah,
Bye.
thank you so much. You were incredible. All right, so I'll just let Versik answer it. Tell him what you wrote in the chat box and ask your question.
Yeah, I really adore how passionate you are about science. What message will you give to CSOs living in developing countries like Kenya that actually don't get to access advanced technology and quality science information? How will they still stay passionate?
That's a great question. How do you stay passionate without the advanced technology? I've had a chance to work with artificial intelligence and machine learning and all these crazy high-tech things, drones and whatever. But at the end of the day, I think paper and tape is just as good. And so to stay passionate, just be thinking. right? It's about the thought process. It's about dreaming, making things and just trying, right? So it's not about having the technology. It's about thinking about what you could make. And then at the end of the day, maybe you actually could, maybe you'll run into the technology, or somebody else, you become the idea person and they have the technology to take care of it for you. So yeah, just stay passionate, paper and tape, being constructive, building things, thinking, make a journal of just all the crazy ideas that you have, right? That'll keep you going. Yeah.
Actually, I have a dream over here,
Yeah, nice.
to stay passionate. Of course, I also won't be the first one to make, systems, something like that. So I usually follow the path of people living in those developed countries, the way how, they do machine learning and all. So I also copy them and try making my own stuff. That's how to stay passionate.
Yeah, exactly. Just keep doing it.
Thank you.
You bet. Thanks for asking.
Mark, thank you so much. This was incredible. Hope, do you want to say any final thoughts?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you, Mark. This was a different Zoom in on science for us, which was super fun. Like, you take us around your makerspace and show us your hydroponics. I think that was really great and fun for us to do something.
You bet.
Back again soon. I want to see that giant pop-up.
Okay, next time I'll sign up for a giant pop-up session. We'll do some paper mechanics.